is not just so everything. I just wanna be your everything. Your everything. Yeah, yeah. Feeling so.
We didn't get that. We need to get that though. Come on.
I know you like me. I know you like it. It's just a dog thing. Apparently, I track a lot of dogs.
Our dog wants to be in there, I guess.
Can I get you down?
Zach,
Can I get you down? Can I get you
Come
down?
on, Pepper. Come on. Down.
She's like, but wait, I want to be in here too.
All right, iPad recording too.
All right, yeah.
Let me check.
Sounds good.
Is that one on?
It is.
All right. And is you can see her pretty well?
Can you
Great
see?
this way, great this way.
I'm getting comfy.
Yeah,
no, I'm getting
this
comfy. This is supposed to be a comfortable situation.
Yes.
Don't worry.
Make us some coffee, Jack.
I took a shower. Don't worry.
Where are you off to after this?
Queen's a house.
Oh, okay.
Queen's a house. So I gotta go over the way here because that's over by Cal Park. I'm at, like right by Indiana. So I gotta go on the other side of the earth.
At least this is so when
Yeah.
you're coming that way, you just gotta come.
Yeah, I gotta go further that way.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
All set.
We're just gonna hit an intro and then you guys can introduce yourselves. So, all right. Hello everyone. Welcome back to Elysium Nights. My name is Maddie Hanna, and this is the GOAT.
Mike Lee. We got a really, really cool episode today.
Yes.
This one we've been super excited for a long time. You guys want to introduce yourselves?
I'm Kim Hanna. I'm her mom.
Yes.
And I'm Stephanie Garza, the creator and co-founder of Latinos in Da House, coming up September 20th at Roberto Clemente High School.
Yes.
So I'm excited.
All right. So let's just get into it. So we heard that you used to DJ B96 or was a host on there, or like what exactly did you do?
So I was actually the original Candi from 1995 and 1996. So I was the co-host along with Julian Jumpin' Perez and Tim Spinning Shomer. They had started a show on Sundays, I believe it was called the Street Mix. And what they were doing was playing tracks from the clubs that when you went to the club, you would hear some certain tracks, CeCe Peniston or any of those. And they would incorporate it on a Sunday during the top 40. So if they played a house track, then top 40 music had to be intertwined into that. But it was a way to expose a lot of the new artists, a lot of the house music that was already being played in the clubs into mainstream. So they did this on Sundays. Then I can't remember if it was Coco Cortez or Brian Hit Mix Middleton who was doing the prime time. And they somehow or other decided to change the schedule. And they introduced us to the scene as a primetime show in December. So it was real cool. We even dressed in fatigues that day, and like we were, out for battle on our first day. So we were from 6 to 10 with the primetime slot being 7 to 10 p.m. So it was pretty cool.
That's awesome.
How'd you get into this? Like
Radio was by accident, but dance is the reason why it happened, which is the way that I met your mom, through dance. Your mom and I used to dance for Excalibur back in the day in 1991. I had just turned 21 and I couldn't even figure out how she got over there because she was under 21. I don't know why she tried to be quiet about it now. We're like already in our years. But I started dancing like I loved dancing when I was a teenager, and back in like 1983, 1984, they used to have dance troupes, your breakers, and I was always fascinated by the movements of the Colitos, Imported Taste, Destiny Dancers, Contact, any dance crew that was out there, All Stars, AKA, and I couldn't get into those dance troupes because one, they were on the north side, and even the south side ones, it was really hard to do that, just because sometimes it was really cliquish. So I knew that I wanted to be a dancer when I went to college, and I didn't want to do any applications. I was really lazy as a teenager when I came to college.
Amen.
And I was like, I don't feel like doing SATs, ACTs, and Columbia College was the only open college that had an open application, and they didn't care about those tests because it was an art school. So I went there as a dancer and started basically doing all my choreography and things of that nature at that time, between 1988 and 1991. when I got dropped out of college because I was failing every single course because, of course, I found out a fake ID and I was partying all over the place. I was getting to meet a lot of different people. And it finally brought me to Excalibur, where one day I believe I saw your mom dancing, a girl named Valencia dancing, and another.
Hi, Valencia.
I think it was her name Annie?
Yes, I believe that was
I think her name
name
was Annie. She was a professional ballet dancer.
Oh, yeah, she was beautiful.
So-
and then there was Jim. Remember Jim?
Yes, Jim was a dancer too. I forgot about that too. And I was like reaching out to people and I was asking, well, how can I, go and dance on the catwalk? Because all my friends were like, you could do a better job. And I'm like, okay.
Wait a second.
So I was like, okay. So then I don't remember who. I think I talked to Annie at the time. It was Annie and Jim that I talked to. And they were like, well, come back next week. We'll be here. And then there was 5 of us on the catwalk. So it was a cool time until I met your mom. And then somehow or other we met people from DJ International. It ended up being that the light guy from Excalibur was actually an artist on DJ International Records. And we didn't know that. So he kept like looking at, we used to do like literally, they would stop like all the music and then we would do like a dance routine. And it was funny because we wear the same costumes, everything else. We went shopping and we would practice our routines. So like in the middle of Excalibur, they would be sitting there dancing and all of a sudden, whoa, and all of a sudden the lights would come down and we were on this platform on the second floor and then we would just do a routine. And everybody loved it. And then they went back to dancing. So Spiro got wind of that and he was just like, hey, what are you guys doing? And we're like, no, nothing. He's like, I got a band and, we're off of DJ International. And then my compadre, Gary Sipich, happened to be managing them at the time also. So he's like, well, why don't you guys come by the studio? We came by the studio and, unbeknownst to us, White Knight would be in one room, Tyree Cooper would be in another room, Fast Eddie would be in another room. And we were like, holy crap, we're really at DJ International.
We were Fast Eddie in the car right yesterday.
Yeah, we were.
I didn't introduce them.
Shout out Fast
So
Eddie.
it was just like, oh my God. I go, we're actually, we're here. We're like dancing for
Yeah, you
a
can see
major
the
record.
studios, right?
Yeah, you
It's
could see the
crazy.
studios and they could hear us dancing and, rewinding the song and going over all the moves. And we were like practicing in different areas. And that's what got me started more into dance troupes. And then after leaving Excalibur, because I found out I was having my first child, I left. And then probably for about a year I was gone. And then I started getting into the underground scene where they were starting to bring back disco and 12-inch, obviously, with bringing it back as into a deep house kind of mode. Started meeting people there. And then from there, I was just in the club scene the whole entire time. A gentleman named Benji Espinoza, I would see him all the time. He was part of DJ International, and he's like, "Hey, how's your acting skills?" I'm like, "I don't act," and he's just like, he says, I got a project for you, and let's see how this goes. So on a Friday night, I met with him, Tim Spinning-Shomer, Julian Jump Perez, and Bad Boy Bill, and as we're sitting around the table. They're like, well, what do you think? They're like, well, we'll give her a try. And at that time, Bill, or Bear Who, who's a world DJ right now, was playing Cookie on B96. So he was pretending like he was, a woman and everything else. And it was cool. He decided to part ways. And they're like, we needed somebody to fill the spot in, like, right away. And that's how I got into co-hosting. And it was Bad Boy Bill who actually came up with the name of Candi. And he was like, we were all like, well, how do you spell it? He's just like, Candi. He goes, you put the heart up on top. And we're like, oh, okay. So the form of Candi happened. And I was there from October of 95 to February of 96. Then I got let go. And out of nowhere, I didn't know that they had already had plans to bring somebody else to take that name. Instead of changing the name, they had somebody else come in.
Yeah, it was
take
a
the
different
place.
voice after a while.
Yeah, and everybody knew it was a different voice
they
because
knew it
people
was
were stopping me like, you're not on the radio no more? And I'm like, no, I'm not on the radio anymore. But, it was a great time. I'm not going to lie to you. It was a great time for me. I think I talked to other people in doing, in trying to find out some history with my upcoming event. And we've all said it. If you had notoriety and you had a movement at that time, you didn't know how to handle that. nobody taught you how to handle how you were going to be, presented, in different scenes. No one taught you how to receive compliments and receive notoriety and be able to be humble. And I can honestly say I fell somewhat into that category at some point, and it was just a hard situation to handle. And coming from just learning how to dance and being professional on that part, it was hard trying to transition. And I think a lot of artists have that problem. No one teaches them how to handle notoriety from a fan base that you were never expecting, and that basically your life is going to be all out there. You could be in the club dancing and trying to hit on this guy, or this guy's hitting on you, and thank God for no social media back then. But
Yes.
the next day somebody was sitting there, calling somebody, hey, did you see old girl over there? Did you see this girl over here? And it was kind of funny, but yeah, things came full circle right when I started dancing in college.
That's awesome. So that leads into what do you think of the music scene nowadays? What do you guys think? How has it changed since social media has come into the picture and streaming and all of that?
Go ahead.
Well, I miss the old days, to be honest with you. I do. I feel there was a lot more happening. It was all fresh and new. And I do like that a lot of our music is being used in today's music. They're taking and sampling it. I do like that. And being a dance teacher, to be honest with you, I can't use a lot of today's music because I can't play it for the kids. But with that being said, I do miss the old day music. So
Yeah.
What do you think?
I think I miss it too.
Yeah.
I agree with you. There's, when you're doing routines or anything like that, or even in the car, you can't listen to music the way that you used to. You used to have some meaning and some heart. I mean, if you look at music back from the 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s, everything had something to do with either love or a broken heart or just life in general. And then as you got into the 70s, it was recently, I just started listening to the 70s station again on my
Me
car.
too. Me too.
And I started listening to some of these songs, and I'm just like, oh my God. It was are they really talking about this? But it was about their lives.
Right.
You go into the 80s, and it was a little bit more of a happier time. Everything was either, about love still, brokenheartedness, drugs, just things in general. And then as you got into the 90s, probably right at that beginning, that's when you started tapering off and it started becoming more about, booties and sex and
Booty
everything
call.
else. Yeah.
Right, Fast Eddie?
And, it's crazy because music's just not the same anymore.
No.
And you can't play it. I was listening to a mix on V103 one day, and I even posted on social media. I'm like, am I listening to the right station? I'm like, is this ratchet music I'm listening to? Is this a ratchet rap?
Yep.
But I mean, I guess they must have changed their format, added a couple of DJs recently, because I really don't listen to regular radio anymore. And as I'm listening to this, I'm like, wow. I'm like, really? Is this what it's come to now to get that fan base and to get that audience? Because I would have never thought I would have heard that on V103. And it's just crazy.
And I wouldn't want my man to be singing the way they sing to each other now, the words that they're using and phrases. Give me some respect.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I am not some kind of object. Give me some respect. And I feel that that's lacking too.
It may be an old school thing, but I think even with their own parents, there were certain things you couldn't listen to, like comedians on records. God forbid if you listen to Richard Pryor or
goodness, yes.
Steve Martin or any of them that were recording albums at that time, because if there was a curse word, oh no, you can't listen to that. Now it's just free, and I'm a sailor mouth, but when I sing, I don't want to be singing a swear word every single time. So, or saying something derogatory. So.
It's not like we didn't have that in our music either, but it's just every song needs to have that now.
It's definitely gotten a lot dirtier.
Yeah,
Like,
it
over
has.
time.
It has.
Very, and
Where's the
almost
romance?
shockingly, you just turn it to any station and you'll hear something about an ass.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, and I think that's what it is. It's the shock value. They want that shock value to make the money.
Yeah.
And there's other ways. I mean, you were saying how, back in the day, my mother got slapped in the face from her father for singing "Come On Baby, Light My Fire."
Yeah.
That's how innocent it was back then. And now it's just, that is nothing now.
And it's not saying that the music back then didn't say what we all knew, but I think we were just sitting there just singing tunes because we liked the beat or we liked the melody. And then, now as you grow older, I was laughing because, MTV used to have,
When it
like
was
back
MTV.
in the 70s, yeah. Back in the 70s or back in the 80s, and, you've got people from those eras talking about, oh my God, I didn't realize that this was, a song about molestation and everything else. It was just craziness because you were just singing because it was a great melody and you thought it was a love song or whatever.
I'm having that conversation with my mom right now because what was it? What was that one? Relax, don't do it.
I just heard that on the radio. I was in the car.
She's like, no, that's what it means. I'm like, Mom. So yeah, so my mom's still in that phase where she's looking back at her whole like hanky panky, the song hanky panky from her young childhood. She goes, "That's not what it meant. It was a dance." I go, "Come on, Mom." So
it always meant that. Yeah, no, that's something honestly that we talk about on the show a lot is like originality, like
authenticity. Because I feel like in mainstream music, that's what we're lacking a little bit today. And like, there's a lot of independent artists out there who are making like authentic music, and that's what we're trying to like shine a light on with this show.
as a dance teacher, I'm asking, I don't know which camera to look at, but
all of them.
I'm
There's
asking,
like several of them. Like, you see that one? I don't see that one.
I need music. I need music, and I want to use current music, but I have to always go back to the music that we dance to because it's so hard to find something that they. And when you have little 5, 6, 7-year-olds singing about shaking their booty, and not in the way that we shake your booty, shake your groove thing.
Well, I don't know. After I saw that movie, after I saw that video of us, I was like, "Ooh, I really like selected some really, out there like costumes and stuff."
Well, yeah, I don't like the costume. What were we thinking?
We were thinking it was cool.
Maybe back then it was cool, but I feel like we got a little bit of Prince vibes going on with that back thing.
That back thing. I thought that was cool though.
Yeah, it was.
I would do it again.
Let's do it. Let's get a routine going.
Let's get a routine.
Yeah, Elysium. We should make an Elysium Nights dance playlist. So anybody who has like music that my mom can use for class, yeah, send it to us. I'll send it to my mom. You guys can get played in dance class.
There it is.
There you go. Yeah, and then so how would you guys discover music back in the day, like before Spotify, and how was the process of doing that?
Remember to press the pause and try to wait for your song.
Wait for like a whole entire hour. There it goes, and then they're talking over it. Oh no! Radio was huge for us.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't have anything other than
radio,
radio, and you only had certain radio stations.
Z95, B96.
Well, WLS. They were a huge part of it.
I remember my parents making me answer the phone. I don't know if you remember this. WMAQ is going to make me rich. Do you remember that one?
Oh, that's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
Then there was XRT. That was the alternative stuff.
XRT played some alternative, but the other thing was they were also introducing new wave, and they were introducing some underground tracks as well, like Italio disco and stuff.
I miss XRT.
Yeah, they were pretty good, but radio was huge for us. Like there wasn't very many radio stations back then, but then a lot of radio stations were playing what we know now as 70s and 80s. But that was the way we did it. And then if we wanted to hear like a certain song, you would be sitting there calling up the radio station, "Hey, can I hear, Donna Summer's, Last Dance," or whatever it was, and you would put your request in. So if that request at that time was being requested quite a bit, you would hear the song again. So the rotations of radio were major for phone requests and what was going to make a hit or not. But it was always that tape cassette, hit play and record together, and that's how you got to know a lot of the music. But also, as mixes started to come into play with BMX and GCI, WJPC, CYC, and CRX, those were the areas where people started listening more of the Italio disco that was happening, and then started bringing in also house tracks and house music in, high energy music. So that's where you get that whole entire vibe of what house music is in Chicago now.
Nice. And so basically, like, that's how the rotation would work, was like phone calls and then that, pretty much?
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
That's sweet. Yeah, I've always been curious how you go about choosing what to play next. Like, did you have any like go-tos? Like, did you ever have like a panic song? Like, if I can't figure out what to play next, I'm gonna go here, or...
Well, I think with radio at the time, from what I could remember and learn, was there was no such thing as dead air. You had dead air, you were in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
So if that song was done, who was manning the board that next song wasn't going in? Because you had sponsors that were sponsoring that entire hour. So that means that music had to keep going.
Mm-hmm.
So even now when I hear like dead air, I'm like, ooh, dead air, dead air.
Yep.
Like, someone's going to be in trouble because someone's not manning the board. So, things like that would happen. And you get phone calls because your bosses are listening. What was all that? I just heard this. I just heard that. That's their job. But going back to your original question, it was really about making sure that somebody was watching that board all the time. And they had already had a playlist. So you had a program director who would turn around and tell you, hey, this is what's going to be played all day today. This is how it's going to go. This is where your commercial's going to go. This is where the break's going to go. If you had visitors, you had to fit that visitor in at the time and figure out when you were going to play their song. So there was a lot behind that scene that a lot of people had to do. And probably even now, I don't know how satellite radio is now, with the stations that they have, but I know regular radio is still the same. It hasn't changed. It's still on its, B clock, C clock, which means how the rotation is going to go for music. And now I believe, it's basically, hey, this is the heavier artist. This is what we're going to pick. Back then, I think there was somebody had mentioned, do you remember when they used to hit it or quit it? So in other words, it was going to be a hit or you were going to toss it and leave it to the side. Mm. And I think it was, what song were we talking about? I think it was GCI used to do it. I can't remember the track off the top of my head, but they were saying that's how the track made its way into radio, was because it was on a hit it or quit it. So and people would come in.
That's so cool.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so another question: what were your like day to day duties when you were the original Candi? What was that?
So come in with coffee.
Coffee,
shout outs.
So yeah, Dunkin' Donuts.
What was Starbucks back then?
We heard a few of the shout outs this morning.
Was it? Okay.
Did you? Yeah. I was sitting there with Kim's
I have a recording.
Kim's little wedding recording. I gotta admit though, that bachelorette party was something else though.
Yeah, is that?
I don't even remember
so
it.
why were you partly hungover? Like,
yeah,
so.
That's what we heard.
It was your mama's fault. It was your mama's fault. Somehow or other, I don't remember too much of that night, but I do remember I was hungover. Literally hungover.
I don't remember anything.
Because you were drunk. So, what was the original question?
What were your day-to-days like when you were going to the radio?
My day-to-day, so for my particular position at that time was to answer the phones. And again, I didn't know what I was up against because no one really described what you were going to do. Mm-hmm. It's not like when you go to a job and they're like walking you through the process. It was like, here are the phones, answer the phones, and la 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 la. So on the other side, Julian would hear, what was going on because he would pick up the phone and you had somebody who was in the booth with you picking up the calls. Hey, this is, B96. How can I help you? This is Candi, blah, 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 or who's your shout out? So that was my job, was basically being the producer of the show. But back then they didn't really describe what that was. And I think if some description at some point would have been, hey, we know you don't know radio, but this is what you do and this is how you got to do it, I think it would have probably been a lot more different. But it was answering phones, getting the calls ready for the, the shout outs, the dog pound,
Dog
then
pound.
voting in the song that you wanted to hear as your top 10 at 9 o'clock. So that was basically my gist of what I was supposed to do for them, and then they were their radio DJs, and I would come in, at every point and sit there and say, hey, this is number 9. And I would sit there and count down the numbers, like number 10. So I thought it was, it's cool now that I look back at it and I can sit there and step back and savor it and say I was the original.
Mm-hmm.
And I get why people in house music sit there and say, I'm the first one. I get that part. I don't take that away from them because it does mean something when you were the first. And then to be on the radio with Coco Cortez, Eddie and Jobo were a part of that. Karen Han was a part of that with their, I think it was their Love Therapy at 9 o'clock from 9 to 11. And meeting her, she was wonderful. I loved her. But just being around a lot of people that you never would have thought you would have been around. And they're legends. They're legends in their radio career. So
That's awesome. So we have 2 more questions. So one question, Latinos in the house. Like, exactly.
Yes.
This whole house
Let's discuss it. What's your question?
So what exactly is Latinos in the House?
So Latinos in the House is a event that I'm hosting on September 28th along with Carlos Valderrama, DJ Lugo Rosado, Pablo Puncal Gonzalez, Cesar Rolón, and Angie Pena. Latinos in the House is a creation of getting our Latino culture, history of music and dance into the mainstream and allowing people to know what history we had in this culture called dance and house music. Everybody has heard from other DJs who have been the founding members of starting house tracks, with Jesse Saunders doing On and On, him being the first person to press it on vinyl. But as the story keeps being told, it's a same story, but it does not include the Latinos that also had a part in it. Jesse Velez, who was the first Latino to ever press on Trax Records with Girls Out on the Floor, that was something that was huge back in the mid 80s, and no one has ever told his story. Everybody knows that the record's out there. You've got Carlos Valderrama, who started the first the first record label for himself called Rama Records, where Lugo Rosado and Cesar Rolón were a part of. Pablo Puncal Gonzalez, who was huge back who's part of the Dominating Six with Gino Rock and Romo, Luis Segura. Those 3 were the first original founders of the Dominating Six on WCYC, which was a huge radio station for the Boys and Girls Club in Little Village. So it's those kind of stories that I believe that we want to embark on, and we want to make sure that we tell those stories. They have intricate stories about how they started, who were their mentors, but I think there's also that push away, kind of like, I don't know who they are, and they were major just as much as everybody else was. My feeling of what I want to accomplish is making sure that we fill in the gaps of where the stories aren't being told. I think once we get away from the who did it first, I was here first, I did this, we can embody the entire history of house music and dance music. And I think that's important because, it's kind of like American history. When you tell American history, you tell it from one side, but sometimes, we don't talk about the slavery part. We don't talk about the, Pancho Villa parts and all these different dynamics of history. We only give little bits and pieces, and I think that's how we're being treated. And I think we need to tell that story and saying, hey, outside of Jesse Velez, there was a Lugo Rosado, there was a Pablo Puncal Gonzalez. Pablo, he was the youngest promoter in the 80s, has a fantastic story about how he started and how even his mother was an intricate part of what he did. And when he tells his story, people are going to be in shock. Same thing with Carlos Valderrama. He was the first Latino to be on Rush Street. Well, back then on Rush Street, it was all Caucasian bars, and there was no Latino that was going to step in there at all. So there's just so much history going on. But the other part is recognizing people who have never really been recognized. Steve's Spin Santoyo, he was the creator on CRX, and his partner, and I know I'm going to get it wrong. I know it's a Rodriguez or Ramirez, one of the two, so I apologize. But, they were the partners in doing CRX. There is so much history from our own side, from our own culture, from dance to promotions to clubs, that not only put us on the map, but also saved a lot of our lives. Because if you didn't have a gang problem in your neighborhood, you also had, living conditions. My mom was poor. Music was huge for us, but music was also an escape. And it was an escape to either save your life or to, make you forget about what was going on in your house. So music has a lot of history that people don't pay attention to, and I believe that Latinos in the House will be able to shed the foundation and go forward in carrying this year after year. Allowing for all the Latinos who have been a part of house music, dance music, hip hop music, and beyond to tell their stories and how they got started and why it's so important to have it.
That's
so
awesome.
Cool. So
Thank
cool.
you.
Yeah, we'll be sure. We're gonna throw the website in the description.
thank you.
Absolutely.
Make sure we give a whole bunch of shout outs because that's awesome.
So it's an event?
Yes, it's an event. It will take place on September 28th at Roberto Clemente High School, where a lot of DJs, producers graduated from, and promoters as well. We will be doing it from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. Time subject to change. And then afterwards, we will be doing an after set from 7 p.m. to 2 a.m. with a whole array of different DJs from back in those days. So it's kind of going to be like not only a reunion, but it's also going to be like taking you back to those days when it was great music. And we're so excited to have that. So we're working on the finalities. We did have a place picked out, but we're going to look at one more spot. And if we change it, then we're going to be really happy. But it's going to happen all on the same day. So it's an all-day event.
That's
That's
cool.
awesome.
Yeah, if y'all are around, you gotta pull up.
Yes, if you're in Chicago, please just stop on by. And the event is free. We are suggesting donations. If you want to give $5 or $10, we are raising funds for Clemente High School to get a brand new sound and mixing board. It's pretty dated, and we want the students to be able to enjoy, to be able to have more performances at their school and be able to use up-to-date equipment, mics, soundboard, anything that we can get them. So a portion of our donations that we raise will be going towards that mixing board.
That's awesome. And will this be a yearly event? Like,
we haven't decided, but most likely it probably will, because there's so many stories that we want to get out there. We currently have 9 DJs for the 70s and 80s. We have the beginning promoters from the 70s and 80s for promotion, photography, and club owners. Then we also have the dance troupes that will be representing one from each dance troupe from back in the day, including break dancers from back in the day. The first B-boys, B-boy B and B-boy Ray. And also from there we go into the producers, artists, and label owners. And then lastly, we'll go with a few more of the 90s DJs and how their influence was from what we have. So it's an array of DJs, but it's also going to have a dance performance that I'm really proud about. And that's going to be done by All-Star, by the All-Stars, by Gringo, who was the original choreographer for All-Stars. So he's doing a really great performance with Latinos Juntos, who's got a Pilsen. So it's a program that basically started from After School Matters program. So yeah, so we hope to do this yearly and literally spotlight a lot of people as we go along, but also capture and archive that music history that's along with it.
that's awesome. Yeah, so if you're in the area, definitely go check that event out. And so last but not least,
We came up with this one on the way here.
I looked around, I was like, oh. What's she up to?
Do you have any stories about my mom you like to tell?
Your mama was a crazy driver. Your mom drove what was it, a Pontiac?
79 Trans Am.
Yeah,
Firebird.
79 Trans Am.
Yes, with the T-tops.
Yeah, some crazy stories. I don't know if I really have a really good crazy story about your mom.
Maybe just some crazy facts.
Your mom really, really loved having her curly hair and bouncing all over the place. And I can seriously remember your mom just turning around and dancing with her big old smile. And she like, Stephanie, smile. I am smiling.
You're like, no, I'm focused here.
Your mom wasn't as crazy as she probably could have been because she was still younger, but we got into the clubs no matter what.
Yeah.
But she had that good girl persona. Your mom was my muse. She was my muse. Like, Steph, we can't do that. Really? Why? So I can't say that I really have anything crazy about your mom other than her driving.
Hanging out in your house, I remember that. With your mom.
Yeah.
Your beautiful
Her
mom.
driving was something else. I mean, that your mama could drive.
She tops me.
She can speed drive. Let me tell you.
She stops. She tops me. So.
Yeah, she could drive. I mean, you're talking when your parents used to live over in Oak Forest. And she would make it to the city by me on 45th and Ashland. I mean, your mom would make it there like 20 minutes.
So
and that's not a 20-minute drive,
20 minutes.
but
She would
make it. She'd make it in 20 minutes from Lockport.
Well, come on now. You would go on forget this traffic. You just go right through. You didn't care.
Your mom was mom was a race car driver before she even knew what race car driving was.
I do have to say that coming home from Excalibur at like 2 and 3. What time did we get done? 3 in the morning. There was a little spot on 143rd Street on one of the expressways, and you hit it just right. It was like the Dukes of Hazzards. You went up in the air, so I got to speed at that point. Yeah, I got airborne. Don't drive bad.
Yeah, and that is the message. Do
not speed drive.
Do not be a crazy driver unless you absolutely have to.
No, those
then
fun
you can
days,
be like
though.
my mom.
They were so fun.
Yeah,
What about Spike too? Do you talk to him anymore?
Yeah, I still talk to him. Still talk to everybody.
Yeah, nice.
I still talk to everybody.
Tell him when I said hi.
We had a lot of people who would always help us with our choreography back in the day.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for coming on.
Yes, thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having us,
Yeah,
and thank you for helping Latinos in the House and bringing us out here.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
absolutely.
Hopefully it's a huge success for you guys. And
I thank you. I appreciate that.
I think we're playing Lawrence that day,
we're playing
right?
Lawrence.
But do it again next year. We'll be there.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Yes.
Sounds
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Sweet.
Thank you so much.
good. Thanks.
Latinos in the house.
Latinos in the House.
Wait, I gotta do it right. Latinos.
I got that.
Cool.
Oh, go out to my son Josh and moms. Hey, also congratulations out to Kim and Jim Hanna who are getting married this Friday, and also the reason why I got partly hungover.
Oh!
Going also to Benji, Steve, DJ Swift, Julio.